On this special Thanksgiving edition, I want to say thank you to all the good folks who stay with the show, and certainly with my good friend Matt Germain for keeping us all informed and sharing his insight with the game. So happy Thanksgiving to all of you, and let's get started. Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I am Mark Carbett, your host, and with me, of course, is Mr. Matt Germain. Matt is the guy who's got all the wit and wisdom of the game. He lets me come out and play every now and then, and that's what we're doing here today. So, hey, how's it going, man?
I'm doing well. I got to chat a little bit with JJ Cooper about the Rays prospects, so I got all the stuff out of the way when it comes to what we have to look forward to, and I'm all primed up for the long lists that'll end up coming out through the off season.
Yeah, I am really curious to see what everything looks like. I mean, as far as the Rays, it looks like we're really going to have a strong list of pitchers coming back, a good rotation. The guys, a lot of them have been injured in the past, and it'll be interesting to see what we see coming up from the minor leagues as well. Man, were you surprised to hear what our former Ray there, Mr. Blake Snell, did today?
I'm not surprised at all. I think I had the Dodgers as one of the top 5 destinations just based on the money he was going to be looking for. I know he messed up last year in terms of waiting for top dollar, and he knew that. So, the fact that the Dodgers came out and what gets me is that they're still the ones that are offsetting the most salaries still, like through all these recent contracts, and MLB's allowing it to happen. And I'm telling you right now, at some point, the Milwaukee Brewers are going to sign Juan Soto and defer about 500 to the 700,000 million that they're gonna pay him, and MLB is going to go, whoa, wait a minute, it's going to happen. That's what surprised me more is that I get financial the future value of money and the present value of money. All those concepts are very well known to me, so I understand why they're doing what they're doing. But for the Dodgers, I think somebody posted today that they have over $1 billion deferred or very close to it, which, you can mortgage as much of your future as you want, in theory. But at what point does the league really need to revamp the whole luxury tax system and the whole punitive system that's supposed to be keeping things in check here, so that we don't have these super teams being built like they have in the NBA? And no league wants to have that. I posted it today. What we have now in MLB is about 10 teams that can afford to compete and 20 teams who really don't matter anymore.
Ooh. I'd like to say you're wrong, but you're not. And it has become kind of an elitist organization as far as very strong teams with a lot of money. And it's kind of funny because I also reflect back on the Rays themselves about how billionaires are trying to find ways to get more money out of the fan base, but thinking about basically displacing their debt for the future. And that's what the Dodgers are doing, and some of the other large teams. They're displacing their debt for the future, and they are going to have contracts like Bobby Bonilla did long ago when it was considered such a fluke. And I guess what Shohei Ohtani's grandkids will probably be getting paid something here in 30, 40 years. Who knows?
Yeah, he's not going to be the Ohtani timeline of wealth is secured.
Yeah. Oh man, defer payment, but I'm glad to see that for Blake. So he's about $185 billion for a 5-year contract. I should have said 185 million. Nice.
So how many of those years do you think he's healthy?
Oh my! You and I both know how that plays out. You'd be lucky to see if he get 3 really good ones out of him. And I mean, I'm looking around now, and you're seeing Verlander, you see Kershaw, and you see all these guys who are fantastic pitchers, but how they're suffering. And I look at that as far as the league making up for all the sharp changing they do these pitchers in the early parts of their career, because they get it. They get these guys for a song. I mean, the Rays had him, all that before free agency. They got him for nothing.
Yep, and they had both him and Glass now in the rotation during the World Series against the Dodgers in 2020, and now the Dodgers snagged both up. So the question is, when do they build the rest of the X-Rays rotation?
Oh, I wonder if Willie will pop up out there. Yeah, who else would be up there? Shane McClanahan. Who I hope not. But yeah, that's it's scary to watch. It's uh, it's money building. That's what they're doing. They're building a team, man. They're building a strong team, and
He
it's
wasn't the only X-Rays to sign. They also had Genesis Cabrera signed a minor league deal with the Mets.
yep.
I, I know he ruffled a lot of feathers, I guess, last year in the way he was pitching and hitting guys when things were emotional. Um, so he's made a name for himself, and I think that's why now he's kind of getting the minor league deal, although the performance has a lot to do with it as well. But it's interesting that he went to the Mets, who kind of need a little bit of that grit, especially in the NL East, because the Phillies tend to play with an edge, and they have some nasty relievers, and so do the Braves, and so it's good to see them kind of go for an edgier kind of guy to give him a little bit more life in the back of the pen, other than only having Diaz.
Now, a lot of Rays probably remember him too. I guess it was from last year, and Jonathan Ronda making it over to third,
Mhm.
and the ball got cut loose, and Cabrera's pitching. He runs over there to cover third, and there was really no need for him to do anything. I think it was a dead play at that point. But he walked over to Cabrera. I mean, Cabrera walked over to Aranda, I think it was. And I don't know if he did like a chest bump or some little push thing. And it's like, dude, really? But maybe, is that the grit you're talking about? Or
Yeah, it was the Caballero. I think it was Jose Caballero that,
oh,
yeah, and it was for no reason whatsoever. There was no
yeah.
need for it, and you know, I don't know. You never know what's being said before and after, so you can't really fully judge unless you know exactly what went on before the game and what the relationship is like, and if they've met before somewhere. So, but yeah, in the heat of the moment, he definitely took things too far.
Yeah. Well, I hope Cabrera has a great time with the Mets. I'm glad to see him being able to do something with that organization. Well, Matt, are you looking at coming down Florida this year?
I think I'm going to head to Vegas, to be honest.
Ooh,
Yeah, because I can go to the Arizona portion,
yeah.
and I'm going to see the Grand Canyon. It's on my bucket list, and also see some shows, Cirque du Soleil, those kinds of things. Just have a little bit more of a chill time. I think it's one of those few moments in life that I'll be able to manage to go out there without having to change much else in
Yep.
terms of our travels. So I'm going to take advantage of it and see some baseball in Arizona, which I've never done.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear your travels there, man. That'll be something. And well, can't wait to see the Las Vegas A's too.
Yeah. Oh man. So what are your thoughts on now we have two franchises that are
Jeez.
going to be playing in minor league stadiums. In theory, they both have a way forward to have a home. A lot of hurdles to be cleared in Vegas. The question is for the Rays, and I think I brought this up to you when we were chatting and messaging. There's a rule somewhere, and I haven't been able to find it. I've been digging, and maybe somebody can clarify it for us. But there's a rule on the proximity of an MLB stadium to affiliates. So my theory is that if the Rays do end up by Sunday, I think they have to make a call to about the St. Petersburg stadium issue. Let's say that falls through and they decide, okay, we're going to either set up shop at Steinbrenner Field and we're going to build a stadium there, or they get a deal with Tampa side somewhere. Either way, the Yankees affiliate cannot exist within the proximity of where the Rays Stadium would be if it's on the Tampa side. They would be forced to move in that case. So my question is, why is there even a question about where they would build if they're going to be in Tampa? Obviously, it's going to be the Steinbrenner Field site. That's the only one that makes sense, because if they're going to have to move anyway, why would you set it up somewhere else? You've got the field, it's baseball ready. You don't have to negotiate with anyone. The only thing you have to negotiate is how the stadium gets paid, and you go through the same kind of process that the Yankees went through to build theirs.
I think what you said really kind of goes to the point of it all. I mean, why wouldn't they just bring it over here? Why wouldn't the Steinbrenner stadium or field is such that it would be able to handle most nights of what you'd have over the Trop as far as the crowd? When they, yeah, come on, I know nobody wants to say it, but it's true. With about 11,000, and MLB will make them, I'm sure, have some changes to that field over there, maybe getting it up to 15,000, maybe like they did in Buffalo with the Blue Jays. They had them update that whole Salins field. So I am curious to see how that plays out, but I don't see a reason why they wouldn't make that their permanent new home. But I mean, at least let's think about this. We're looking at the amount of the heat and the rain that you get down here. I mean, there's a reason that the Marlins moved from was John Robbie Stadium and having the Marlins Park built. You know, there's you can't have players out there in that kind of heat, and you cannot have that many games that are going to be rained out as they probably will be with the early part of the season.
Right. So I think the key there, and MLB recognized that, and they made a bunch of changes to the schedule to kind of compensate for that. But at that point, then you're getting to the travel demands on the team and their families and everything else. And then the kind of advantage that it gives the Rays for the first part of the season in terms of playing at home almost that entire time. Like they basically don't have to move around much. So other teams are going to see that as an advantage that they can kind of feed on. And they get to set their roster accordingly. And that's a huge thing. If you're playing on grass and you can set up your roster to be a certain thing, especially in a home run friendly stadium like it's going to be, you're able to set your roster now to know exactly, okay, for these months, I need this kind of roster because we're going to be playing there. And then for the next stretch, I need a different kind of roster because we're going to be moving around all over the place. So the Rays are going to be able to play some different strategies when it comes to roster makeup that other teams are probably going to be aggravated by. Now, everything is always going to be related to health. There'll be cancellations. There'll be double headers. There'll be a lot of things. But I think the key element here is that eventually, if the Rays do set up shops on Steinbrenner Field, there's going to be some sort of rectification of what's overhead, right? I don't know what the ultimate plans would look like. I'm hoping it would be something similar to what came out in Ybor. And you know, a translucent roof, make it interesting, make it attractive, and make it so that there's light that can come through enough to the point where you may be able to have grass in there anyhow.
That would be something, you know, I'd be curious to see if they actually try to do it over there with the Steinbrenner Field or try to build a separate stadium, you know, like an Ybor and they originally had planned and just make Steinbrenner where they're going to be for the next couple of years. But I know you were talking about MLB trying to make amends for the demand of with the weather. And I know I read, Rays will play 47 of their first 59 at home, then 69 of their last 103 on the road. Man, 69 of your last 103 games on the road, that's intense.
Yes, that's a lot.
You know, you try to measure a team through a season. You know, you got everybody healthy at the beginning of the year, and by the time October comes, you know, you look at the Dodgers. They had to have a bullpen day in the World Series. You know, it's not going to be the same team. So if you take the great team that you hope you got everybody healthy and in place, you know, opening day, and then what it's going to be at the end of the season, but you also put in a factor of, oh, and by the way, the last half of the season, you're going to be mostly on the road. It's a lot to ask.
Right. And I think the Rays are cognizant of that now. I think we can honestly say it's going to be 2 years at least that they're there, more than likely 3. So this isn't just a one-time deal. I will say that, you know, after 2027, the roof at the Olympic Stadium in Montreal will be completed. So at that point, they could look at different alternatives. Now, I don't know if it would be how significant Um, how can I phrase this better? So the Blue Jays did a $750 million renovation to their stadium, right? And that's why they ended up playing in Buffalo for a portion of the year, because when they started the renovations, it took longer than expected, and they had to spend, what was it, 2 or 3 months
Right.
in that stadium. So in theory, if the roof is in a point where they can start renovations there and they end up, getting an expansion team, let's say, I don't even know when they would announce it. But let's say that they're looking to prepare the stadium for that. Can they do a portion of that so that it proves the concept that they're ready for expansion by hosting the Rays for that period of time, and then applying for an expansion team after that, while the Rays are still negotiating or building a stadium in Tampa, whichever it is. But I have a feeling that if they do end up building a stadium in Tampa, the commissioner's still going to want them to stay in the Tampa region so that the fan base doesn't lose track or love of the team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, Manfred has tried to build a little love in the midst of all this turmoil between the Rays, the city of St. Pete, and the commissioners from Pinellas County. And I think he's tried to tamp down the volume a little bit, but I don't know what he's actually done in the back rooms. I'd love to hear what he's had to say to Brian Auld, Matt Silverman, and Stu about working effectively as a partner with the city. And it's gotten crazy. I've got to give credit personally when I look at this whole insanity thing. And I look at the Pinellas County commissioners. I see Kathleen Peters, and who's the other one? Brian Scott. They're two of the leads of those commissioners. And I think they've had pretty cool heads about trying to make this work. They delayed votes on bonds because they knew, one, they don't feel like they have the commitment from the Rays, and they want to get that in writing. And two, with a couple of the new people that came on the commission back in November, it could possibly, destabilize a yes vote. And I think that Auld and some of the other ones were kind of saying, "Oh, you're saying no to us, and we're going to leave." But that wasn't the case. I thought both Kathleen Peters and Brian Scott had a good vision, saying, "Hey, if we take a vote today, we know it'll be no." The part comes down to, I was having lunch with a friend of mine, Tony, today, and he said, "Mark, I'm just tired of reading about it."
That I understand. I'm up here in Canada, and I can't even stand the subject anymore. I think I wrote about this with D-Rays Bay a bunch of times. I covered the whole Montreal uptick, the banter between Stu and everybody. How many mayors in St. Petersburg has he had arguments with about this? And I think at some point in time, you're going to have to step up. And that's the part that gets me, and it drives me nuts. And my dad always said this, and it's something that's always in the back of my mind, that Major League Baseball is a business.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, those owners are not doing it for the love of the game. They're not doing it for the fans. They're not doing it for nostalgia. No, even Steve Cohen, he knows it's a business. There are limits to a business. There's money involved. The money is ultimately more important than anything else to them. So you have to recognize that. And the fact that of the matter is that they're trying to position themselves to get that one big payout. Because when you build a stadium, it's a once in a 20, 25, 30, 40 year instance. And it's your ultimate chance to increase the value of your franchise by the most significant margin. You don't have to look any further than Jeffrey Loria to realize that. He got to help Major League Baseball sink the Expos, got an interest-free loan to buy the Marlins, bought the Marlins, barely paid anything out of his own money, and ended up selling them for $1 billion.
Jeez.
So, the money that we're talking about is ludicrous, and it is insane that taxpayers are on the hook for the majority of that.
Yep.
So you can, in theory, go, okay, well, Florida is handing Jeffrey Loria, I can't remember the exact numbers, but somewhere between $300 and $600 million, just for the sake of having built him a stadium. That's ultimately what ended up happening. And then, just like everybody's afraid of, with Stu Sternberg, he sold the team, and now he's out of it, and he's selling art and looking at art somewhere in the world, and I don't really care where. But those are owners. You look at Jerry Reinsdorf with the White Sox and what he's pulling. It's insane. The majority of teams, if we saw their books and how the accounting actually looks after taxes, we would be in an uproar with all this nonsense about us paying stadiums for them. They are making out like bandits, Mark. It is insane. So I understand all those people that get up in those meetings when they have open mic and they go up and they talk and they preach the truth, which is that there are people who deserve that money more than some owner of a game.
Amen. Amen. I know it's hard sometimes being a fan of a team like this when you look around and you see the need elsewhere for where those dollars need to be spent, and almost a kind of a guilt complex. I hate to say it, but when I was thinking, oh my gosh, how many of these jerseys do I own? How much of that could I have done something with to help some of the homeless in the area with what I spent on jerseys in the last year?
So here's a number for you, Mark. And I wrote a big rant about this today because it drives me nuts. And I did business courses and I know how trusts work. And so in Nova Scotia, I use that as an instance, but I'm just going to use the numbers based on what the town or the city of St. Petersburg could end up paying for a stadium. Okay. We know homelessness and food security are a big issue. So let's say instead of building a stadium for the Rays, the city of St. Petersburg, over time, it doesn't have to be done in year one, but over time, put that $600 million into a trust instead of helping them build a stadium. And they ended up at that $600 million number ultimately in however many years they want to get. Well, that would mean that from that point onwards, assuming an interest rate of about 7%, they would in perpetuity get $42 million a year to put towards food security and homelessness forever. They wouldn't have to put another cent in there. You have solved homelessness and food security in probably a bigger region than Tampa. You're talking probably all the way to Orlando at that point with that 600 million. But instead, what you're going to do is hand it over to an owner who 25 years later is going to look out for another handout for another stadium. And then that's where the money's going to go. And yeah, you'll get some people some jobs. That's great. And you'll entertain some people, which is awesome. I understand the value of having a cohesive team to cheer for and how that can build a community. But I'm saying that the ultimate weight of it should be at least 80% ownership and 20% city, maybe 75-25 you can sell me on. But I want that money to go into trusts instead to solve the real issues of the world, including hunger, including homelessness, including recovery from hurricanes and natural disasters, tornadoes, whatever it might be. Trusts are way more powerful than to hand money to a sports organization.
Well, I agree. I mean, if you think about it, if we're just subsidizing them and I think 80% is a reasonable amount because do they have enough skin in the game? Because if they don't have to worry about it, if the only thing they're looking at is the land that they would get over in Pinellas, and it's just so easily to walk away from the whole stadium idea because basically we've just handed over. It's the land itself has a much greater value than what's being charged to the Rays for it. So I don't know. Maybe we should talk about something else because it is a bit of a downer. And
something upbeat. We'll change it. I'll change the subject on you right now.
Okay.
So something that few people know about or talk about, I guess, is the lottery system in Major League Baseball drafts has been a little bit interesting because it's penalized some teams that you can really say tanked, and it has brought up some teams that probably deserved a good kudos for doing a good job. Like last year, we saw the Guardians get the first overall pick, right? And while some teams that had finished behind them, ended up getting the short end of the stick and got to select a little bit later. So this year, what's hilarious is that the White Sox had one of the worst records in history. And they had 41 and 121. 41. The Rays won 40 games in a 60-game season.
Jeez.
And they only won one more game in a full 162. Think about that for a second. So they don't even have the opportunity to be in the top 9 picks because of things that have transpired over the years and how many times they got lottery picks in the top 10. So it's really interesting how the system is playing out. And it's the same thing with the Oakland A's. They couldn't be in the top 10. So they're going to select 10 and 11, regardless of what happens with the lottery. So what it does mean as well is that the Rays have a 1.5% chance of getting the top pick. Now, why is that interesting? Well, the Guardians had almost the exact same amount last year. They had 2%, and they got the top pick. So I'm just saying, it's interesting. The Rays could jump up to be, I don't know, let's say top 5. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But right now, the two teams that have the highest chance at the top pick are Colorado and Miami, both with about 22% chance. So it'll be interesting to see who gets it. I'm always intrigued because, the top 1, 2, 3 picks generally are really, secure, and they can move up to MLB usually pretty quickly. So I'm curious to see, and it's going to happen. The lottery is going to happen during the winter meetings, which are coming up. So that's why I mention it now, so that people can kind of start peeking around the corner and saying, "Oh, we're going to get more blood."
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see that as well. Looking at the draft and looking at some of these teams, looking at the White Sox briefly, my gosh, what a terrible, terrible season. I know Nick Morowski from Good Gas Talk Back. We've had him on here before. And I cannot imagine wondering what this season's going to look like for them, whatever they get from the draft. I know they had changes, that they had Pedro Grafal, who they just pulled out of the dugout and to manage the team. It didn't go well. But the thing of it is, I think the biggest challenge now they have is Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner. I think he was a real challenge for the Chicago Bulls, and how long they were going to have their continued success. So if you have owners like him, if you have owners like Fisher with the A's, it's just, there should be some standards, man. There should be some standards. I mean, Marge Schatz got kicked out of all of it for a while. There has to be standards for these owners, and the 30 of them are not going to set them for themselves in the winter meetings.
Nope. No, that's the irony of Major League Baseball is the owners don't really keep themselves accountable. They're all almost like outlaws on their own, and you do have a ranger in there, which is supposed to be the commissioner, but sometimes he's worse than all of them. So it's a little bit like the Wild West when it comes to ownership. You can end up with one that gets it right, and it happens. And I think, Steve Cohen could be put in that category. I think there's also, the Phillies have a great owner. I think some ownership groups tend to be more stable. So what you have in LA is a good example. What you have in Baltimore that just bought the Orioles, they tend to be more stable because opinions get shared and people end up having cooler heads and a more well thought out message. And like we were talking about the communications, for the Rays ownership, that's an example, right? Where maybe the Rays would have better communications if they had a group of individuals as owners instead of just one, tycoon at the top that wants to cash in on as much as possible without building the relationships, without having other people in the room saying, "Hey, well, maybe we want to frame it this way, or maybe we want this, or maybe we want that," right? All the partners that he does have are pretty silent, from what I understand. So I will say, we're talking back about the White Sox. I still remember this minor league season, and I know I'm a prospects junkie, so it marked me. But I was impressed with how the Double-A team played for the White Sox, and they ended up winning the championship in the Southern League. So there is hope around the corner for them. They did make a few deals, that give them some guys to start building around, but they are so far, they really, this offseason, have to maximize the value of Garrett Crochet, Luis Robert, and probably trade Andrew Vaughn. Just move on from those three, get whatever value you can out of them while you can, so that you can actually, flip the page and also flip some of the attitude on the team, right? It's always refreshing when you get new faces and you get a new kind of mix of people in there. And I think the White Sox need a do-over in almost all areas of their team right now. So it'll be interesting to see how aggressive they are during the season. Now, I always say the second thing that I saw Alex Anthopolous do in Toronto that impressed me a lot is, especially when he first moved into them, was he would trade away a lot of players for a lot of prospects, yes, and then he would actually sign guys that he knew he could trade at the deadline so that he could get even more and continue building that snowball. So he was still spending the money. He was just doing it short term so that he could move on after that and get more talent into their organization. And the White Sox really need somebody that's going to push that kind of agenda. I'm not sure Chris Getz is the guy to do it, but we'll see. I'm going to give him a chance to prove himself this offseason. I still think that they need a complete overhaul of their evaluations because a lot of the deals they're making, they're not really getting the full value out of them.
Well, and the vibe in that clubhouse has to be just weak. I mean, it's somber with, only 40, 41 wins. You could even bring both Mookie Betts and Willie Adames in there as cheerleading. I don't, it's going to take a lot more than that to jumpstart this team, the attitude. And I know the players and from the management on down, I'm probably more curious about watching them than just about any other team next year, to be honest with you, seeing what they can do to turn down the ugliness of 2024.
Start fresh, give guys a chance to prove themselves. A lot of times you can find a lot of good talents. Look at the A's last year as a good example, right?
Mm-hmm.
They ended up with one of the guys that everybody was calling them about to trade at the deadline. They wanted Brent Rooker, and everybody was calling them about it, and they held fast. They said, "No, we are going to start building now," because they traded how many guys with the Yankees, with this, with that, and they kept accumulating talent. And at some point, you do have to say, "No, now we're ready to move ahead." But the White Sox are so, I don't want to say they're so far. So to me, baseball always starts behind the plate, right? And that's the genius in the moves that they did make with the Astros and other teams. They got some catchers that are intriguing. They got Edgar Cuero and they got Corey Lee. Those two guys, in theory, could end up leading your pitching staff to kind of overachieve if they actually step up and are as productive as what we're expecting them to be. Having said that, catchers tend to be volatile, right? So a lot of them tend to take a few years to grow. But in a way, that's a good problem to have because now you can start building pieces in your rotation and in your pen to work a relationship with those guys and establish something over time. But you're going to have to be aggressive, like because you don't get pitching talents like that or develop them without having something like what the Rays have, right? And I like to say, okay, I give them credit for doing Garrett Crochet. They developed him. They had a hand in Chris Sale and getting his career started, right? So they're not completely oblivious when it comes to pitching development. So, once you get the pitching and the catching kind of resolved and a few position players that are intriguing in there, and they have a few that are coming up. Carson Montgomery is one that does a shortstop who's, supposed to have a lot of good, all around kind of player. You have Brian Ramos, you have Miguel Vargas that they got from the Dodgers. You got a lot of guys that have a lot to prove, but they have the talent. Sort of like what we used to see with Miguel Andujar, and he's doing that, a little bit now with the A's. So it's not all lost. and to be honest, how hard is it to get a first baseman and a left fielder and a right fielder? They've got Benintendi in there right now, but eventually I think we know that he's going to get dealt as well if he has a good stretch of time. So yeah, it's never all lost with baseball. You just need to have a plan and to start filling spots and make them as long-term as you can.
I gotta apologize, man. I am just not in the game tonight for one reason or another. That's the honest truth of it. Uh, Part of it's like to me is just dwelling too much on this shit
I know you
about the
want to
stadium,
avoid it.
and it's like good gravy. but it's
It's so outlandish everywhere. Like I do want to go back to it, but because there's no hard and fast information that we can use until Sunday, right? When
yeah.
Sunday happens, then we can kind of sit there and go, oh, well, they said no. Okay. So now they're never going back to St. Pete, essentially.
Well, again, I'll go back to saying I give a salute to Kathleen Peters for putting together that letter and, saying what I'm requesting that you officially declare your intention regarding this agreement and whether you intend to see it come to fruition. I mean, that was part of it. And I was like, yes, damn it, and then giving the deadline. I thought that is just huge. And back home, if the Rays don't like it, guess what? All this paperwork, all these contracts, all of the wordage has been there all along. And there wasn't a deadline by when they said they would absolutely sign the bonds. I understand that the Rays are hungry for it, but I'm so, so happy to see that, excuse me, Kathleen Peters just stood right up and said, guess what, guys? We need an answer. Yes or no?
And I don't think they're going to get it. I think it'll be quiet. And I think they'll just have to, what they'll do is they'll wait for them to assume because there'll be no answer. And there's no contract in writing saying that they have to give them an answer. So then they'll just go the legal route if they want as an option. I don't know who's going to say what, when, and how, but I know that, like I told you, I think we were talking when the Hurricanes first hit or after they hit. I really think that shook up the ownership, and especially looking at the development of St. Petersburg
Yeah.
and how it'll be. I really think they were like, "Oh, well, that's not going to work," and then they were like panicked, and we need a way out. So they're pulling on the parachute right now, and they jumped out of the plane already, in my opinion. You know, sometimes things happen for a good reason. And I think when you look at the timing overall, we talked about how fortunate it was for St. Petersburg that the Hurricanes happened after. Well, obviously we were both wrong because there were ways out that we didn't anticipate.
No.
Yeah.
Didn't
And
anticipate these at all.
at all. I didn't see it coming. I really didn't. I thought they were locked in once they signed the deal. So
I was trying to get Hillsborough County Commissioner Ken Hagan on here. I did not give him enough lead time. Maybe we'll have him on next week. He was a big proponent of bringing the Rays to Tampa, 4 or 5 years ago, the whole thing about Ebor. And I'd love to hear what he has to say. I'm also going to reach out to Daryl Shaw, who's a real estate developer he has developing a lot of around Ybor City. So he'll be instrumental in seeing whether or not that could happen there. But man, as much as I don't like seeing all the frustration for the city of St. Petersburg and the county commissioners and the Rays fans, I'm like you. Maybe we'll get the best result out of this anyway. Maybe we'll get a team over here in Tampa, and we'll have a team that has a proximity of a lot more audience who can come to a place like that. I think that would certainly increase the attendance of these games, and we'll see what it's going to be. But I see that as a real boon.
yeah, well, when you think about it, from what I gather, right, the traffic from St. Pete to downtown Tampa at nights, or assuming you go to a game and you're from St. Pete, the traffic in that direction is a lot less than it would be the other way.
Right.
So it's actually easier for people from St. Pete to support games in Tampa than it is for Tampa to support games in St. Pete, if that makes any sense. So in a back around way, you've built a solid fan base now for years, for decades in St. Pete. And now you're going to draw them into Tampa, hopefully with a beautiful stadium that they'll want to go to, as often as they can. So it actually, for the Bay altogether, it might be the best case scenario of outcomes overall, because now you're going to have a strong fan base in St. Pete, and you're building up the momentum in Tampa, and it might ignite at that point to the point where eventually they become a major market team.
Well, let's hope that happens, my friend. All righty. What else we got, brother?
Baseball America released their top 10 Rays prospects, and I just want to note that there's three things that they're sort of always, I know every outlet has their own preferences, right? And they have their own things that they look at. But one of the things that I'm always intrigued about when these things come out is what grades are they giving to their tools? Because year to year, they tend to change. They get more eyes on them, more experience with them. So for example, Carson Williams, everybody knows he's their top prospect, but I don't think everybody knows why he's their top prospect. So you look at the skill value, and he's got a 70 grade fielding mark, 70 grade arm. So he's getting the ball in there like at a ferocious, 70 they don't hand out readily. It's something that they give out pretty rarely. I don't even know if Taylor Walls ever got a 70 arm grade as a shortstop. So it tells you the fielding value of Carson Williams. So essentially what they're saying is that his ceiling is higher than Taylor Walls as a shortstop, and he has 60 grade power and a 50 grade run. So you imagine if Taylor Walls merged with Junior Caminero, you're getting closer, right?
Wow.
To what Carson Williams could be. Now, obviously, Junior has more power, but you're getting closer to that point where he's a special prospect. That's why he's ranked in the top 4 in MLB. They were also super high on Braden Taylor, like just as a complete player. Braden Taylor, to me, he's one of those guys that can move all around the infield. He could end up as a third baseman, second baseman, shortstop. He can play all of them at a very high level. So basically, he's like going to be a very solid utility, which means that he can move up really fast if they believe in his hit tool. So all of his grades are 50s. Like he's just across the board what they would picture as a dirtbag kind of baseball player. So they're very high on him. They're very high on Trey Morgan in terms of his fielding, especially, and his hit tool. His hit tool has been bragging about it, like endlessly. But his fielding, they're just like, I would never move him off first base. He has to be at first base. And like, whoa, hang on a second. I don't see Xavier Isaac playing the outfield at all. I just don't. I don't think that it's a fit for him because he's a bigger guy. And like, I'm not talking, he's lost a lot of weight from originally when he got drafted, and he's a lot fitter now. I just don't think he has the speed that the Rays would be asking for from their outfielders. I still think because Trey Morgan has a much better run than Xavier Isaac that I've seen anyway. I could be wrong. Maybe the times, once we get them under Baseball Savant, end up being closer than I think. But either way, you're going to have Xavier Isaac at first base or Trey Morgan, and you're going to have the other one in the outfield more than likely, unless one of them ends up DH. So I'm just going to, they can go in terms of grades. Like they gave an 80 fielding grade to Trey Morgan, which basically means if he doesn't win a Gold Glove at some point, something has gone terribly wrong. Right?
Yeah.
The 80 grade, Baseball America barely ever gives out. And they gave him an 80 grade as a fielder. I think that is just phenomenal to know. So I'm definitely going to be taking a closer look now. I didn't get to see him as much at first base because he was sharing time, and he played some outfield in the AFL, yada. So I'll be curious to see that. And the last thing I'll mention from their list, just because I don't want to give it all away, you should get a membership to their site and get to know more about what it is they do and why they have value. But I was curious about their Gary Gill-Hill. He was one of the best pitchers that they had in the system for the Rays. And one of the things that they do is they set up what they think the roster will be years from now. It's not meant to be accurate. It's just meant to provide a glimpse of, okay, if all things shake out, this guy could end up being the number 1 pitcher. This guy could end up being the number 2 starting pitcher, et cetera, et cetera. They didn't even have him in the rotation. They had him in closing games, which is really intriguing because if you look at his frame, he definitely doesn't seem like he would be the type to be a workhorse. Having said that, Blake Snell wasn't the biggest guy when he was coming up out of high school either, right? It took a while for him to get the man body, and he got there eventually. Same thing with Chris Archer. So there's a chance that Gary Gill-Hill could end up in the same spot and end up being a dominant pitcher as a starter as well. I just found it interesting. Like I started thinking, well, is he going to be a closer, or is he going to stay or shift to close or stay as a starter. And the last thing, I'll actually mention one more. They did say that the shoulder for Braylon Guerrero is going to be fine. So this during the season, I think I mentioned it when we were talking. He had a major shoulder injury, which kept him out, even though he was like crazy, crazy, crazy good when the season started for him. But a shoulder injury slowed him down, but apparently he's going to be fully healthy for next year, which is great because he's one of those probably one of the most electric talents that they have right now in the system, and he could end up being in the top 3 rank next year, I think.
Wow. Now you're attributing most of this to your research with was it Baseball Prospectus?
Baseball America.
Baseball America. I'm sorry. Good.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we give a shout out to them because you're like you said, no use you reading all the content. People should go there and do some discovery themselves.
Absolutely.
Wow. Now I'm really excited about Trey Morgan, seeing what he's going to look like, and it's exciting watching these teams develop. And Matt, your ability to track all this, what's going on with the minor leagues, long before they ever make it to the Rays. I start to say to the Trop, but yeah, I know.
That's going to be a habit that's hard to break, Mark.
It is, my friend. It is. Oh, but man, you've given us hope. You've given me a reason to say, yes, I'm still a Rays fan. Yes, I am still excited about the future. And because knowing that talent is there gives me a sense of there's something still to see, even if we don't understand completely what the next couple of seasons are going to look like for the Rays. We know there's a great depth of talent that can be seen through the minors that are coming up.
Mark, there are people that kept me interested in the Expos right up till the last few years, like Brandon Phillips, Bartolo Colon, anybody that touched an Expos jersey after they existed no more, kept the flame alive to some point. And it takes a long time for that flame to get extinguished altogether when it comes to what your organization touch. I don't think there's any doubt that the preference of the league is to have a team in Tampa. So I think, they'll give it as much of a shot as they possibly can. I know they're not going to pay 100% of the stadium.
No.
But like we've said before, when I said I firmly stand on this, okay, Mark, and I've seen corporate people do this before. They get their favorite place, they get their favorite deal making place, and they just get hooked on it. And I think that once they see what a show that the Rays put on, especially early in the season with all the highlights they're going to have, it's going to happen all at once. So now if you're a corporation, you're able to say, okay, I can set up clients, boom, 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 one after the other. All the games are going to be pretty close. So I think you're going to see a love affair build between the Rays and the city of Tampa. It doesn't happen overnight, but I think, if the Rays were to get off to a hot start on top of it, it would just build the hype even more. So I have to do a review, and I haven't looked at it yet, of who they're playing early in the season and see, what are the chances that they go on a hot tear like they did 2 years ago, just to see, if they can actually amp up the following that they're going to be asking to build in Tampa.
Well, I'm excited about it. I'm hoping to see that future evolve here, buddy, because there's a lot of fans who want to see that over here in Tampa. And I definitely believe it'd be a shot in the arm as far as just attendance alone. More and more people would come to it. I mean, there's a reason that we have a hockey team and we have a football team that do, very, very well with attendance. And while they're great teams and people enjoy those sports, if we'd had the Rays over here, we would have a much better chance of having better attendance, better support for that team. But we'll just have to see who's going to come up with money for all of it and see what happens comes this Sunday. If Brian Auld says anything or remains silent, and what St. Pete and the commissioners from Pinellas County decide. And I'm hoping for good things, my friend.
Yep, I'm hoping for great things for all of you guys. I
Yeah.
think you guys have been through a lot. It's almost like a little bit of doomsday right now in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
People are looking at different options. But I remember when the sister city concept first came out, I mean, people were really lit up for that. And I think a lot of people were like, I'm done. That's it. Blah,
Oh
blah,
yeah.
blah. They didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel then. And we went through ups and downs and the roller coaster ride that is the Rays Stadium issue is just, I think it's guaranteeing that the next time that the league thinks about adding a franchise, they're going to make sure that the stadium issue is resolved from the get-go. And it's going to be part of the plans because the A's and the Rays have proven that you need that strength to maintain, a good MLB franchise long term.
Well, let's see. We'll wish the best for all this, and I gotta get the turkey in the oven here in a few minutes, dude. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
anyway,
Happy Thanksgiving, by the way.
thank you. I'm about a month late from you guys.
Yeah. Well, what kind of stuffing do you have?
Oh, stovetop.
Ah,
I know.
gotcha. Do you
No,
add anything to it or?
yeah, I'll leave my daughter to all that when I was in Louisville. Right here, I'm going to be visiting over my daughter's Christine over in Orlando. So actually, I have no idea what's going to be served,
Huh?
but it'll be fun. It's all about getting family together.
Yes, man. That's what it's about. Enjoy it. Have
All
some
right, brother.
some extra cranberry for me.
Well, we're going to be talking later on in the future episodes. I've got some things as far as what's happening with the Women's Pro Baseball League, with the All Americans. What they did, the Comets, the Bells, and the Peaches, what they did in Durham, which was not able to get to. And there's also Kim Ang. My gosh, Kim Ang, who was GM for the Marlins and had been with the Yankees organization before that. She is going to be heading up the whole new league for women's softball team. So there's a lot going on there. Those will be some things to talk about in future Baseball Biz episodes. But my heart right now is trying to find a home for a baseball team called the Tampa Bay Rays and seeing if Tampa will be the location for the Tampa Bay Rays. All righty. Any other wisdom that you care to impart upon the audience here today?
No, I honestly just hope and plead that Stu Steinberg has the machinery that needs to be going in
Amen.
order to make the proper decisions, and that they include a lot more well thought through concepts.
I like that. I like that a lot. Amen. All right, Matt. Thanks again, buddy, for being here today on Baseball Biz. And I always love sharing the conversation with you.
Absolutely. Always a good time, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
All righty. Thank you all again for joining us here today on Baseball Biz on Deck. And we look forward to talking with you again real soon. Just remember, you can find Matt at, oh my gosh, Matt, where can we find you at? I can't go with the old, where can they find Matt Tremaine?
I'm now on Blue Sky only. I'm no longer on X. I refuse to stay on that platform for numerous different reasons. My tag is at MATGERMAIN .bluesky.social. So you just find me there, and I'll be putting up the same kind of content as what I did on X. So if you enjoyed that, then come and say hi.
Definitely check it out. And Matt, I want to thank you for introducing me to Blue Sky too. I'm dragging my feet over there slowly. I haven't completely moved out of the Twitterverse, but yeah, it's a great place to go, folks, and to get some great information. And Matt, when they're looking at you on there, you actually have like a starter pack where they can find a whole group of folks that are involved with baseball or even the Rays. How's that set up?
Correct. So on Blue Sky, what they call starter packs. So you're able to build, a network of people that you or whatever your cause is, your organization, whatever you lean on for that topic or for that time. So you get to build it based on the people that you follow. So in my case, I have everything from Major League Baseball writers to people that I follow because they're great sites or they're great commenters or they're great fans of the team, etc. And I haven't gone back and modified it based on new people that have joined Blue Sky since. But it's a healthy one for a Rays fan to start with, and then they can add to it from there. And it just gives you a base following so that your feed generates enough interest in posts and everything else that you're interested to go back and keep reading, keep flicking. So to me, that's the great way to start. And then you just build there like you did when you went to X or Twitter at the time.
All right, man. I tell you what, man, I may have to cut this and put it back up toward the front of the show, or maybe I'll do both.
Sure, that's fine, man. Do what you got to do.
Oh, I think because I think people need to know this. Again, well, thank you, Matt, and for being on the show once again. And folks, follow him on Blue Sky. Baseball Biz on Deck is there as well. But Matt's always got plenty to share and great insights. So thanks again, and we'll look forward to talking with y'all again real soon. Special thanks to XTakeRUX for the music rocking forward.
Just a reminder, you can find Matt at matgermain.bsky social. That's at mattgermain.bsky.social or Mark at baseballbizondeck.bsky.social. You may also find Baseball Biz on Deck on iHeart, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and at baseballbizondeck.com.